Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time, as we wrap up Friday, 16th May 2025. Let's see what stories are unfolding around us. In Ukraine, direct peace talks with Russia occurred in Istanbul, marking the first such engagement in 3 years since the Russian invasion began. President Volodymyr Zelensky, after meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, dispatched a delegation led by his defense minister to the talks. Russia, however, sent a delegation of lower rank without key decision-makers, according to Zelensky. As discussions unfolded, a Ukrainian diplomatic source alleged that Russia presented unacceptable territorial demands, potentially jeopardizing the negotiation. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stressed the critical role of Russian-US relations in addressing international issues, including the crisis in Ukraine. Pope Leo XIV pledged every effort to facilitate negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, meeting with the head of the Greek Catholic Church in Ukraine to reinforce this commitment. The United Kingdom is grappling with cyber attacks, reportedly facilitated by UK-based members of the scattered spider hacking community, according to Google. These attacks have disrupted operations at UK retailers like Marks & Spencer, the Co-op, and Harrods, and are now impacting the US. In other news, Roman Lavrinovich, a 21-year-old Ukrainian man, faces arson charges for allegedly setting fire to the personal residence of British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He remains in custody following his initial court appearance. Tragically, a fire at a former British military base claimed the lives of 2 firefighters and a civilian. Grammy-winning singer Chris Brown was arrested in England for allegedly assaulting a music producer with a bottle in a London nightclub in 2023 and has been remanded in custody, potentially affecting his upcoming tour. The UK Parliament is currently engaged in debates surrounding an assisted dying bill, which has undergone approximately 150 revisions since last year's vote. Claims have emerged that Ronson was disrespectful during the debate. In the United States, the U.S. Secretary of State has asserted that discussions between Trump and Putin are abundantly clear as necessary for achieving a breakthrough in ongoing peace negotiations. Belgium has decided to reverse its nuclear phase-out plans, a policy initially adopted over 2 decades ago. This reversal comes after a previous 10-year delay in the phase-out, prompted by energy uncertainties stemming from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Turning to Japan, Nissan's CEO, Ivan Espinosa, has indicated the Japanese carmaker's willingness to manufacture cars for its Chinese partner at its Sunderland factory. This announcement confirms that the plant will remain operational despite cost-cutting measures and the closure of 7 other factories. Finally, Reporters Without Borders and Truth Hounds have revealed that Russia's attacks on hotels were intended to, and #39 discourage, and #39 war coverage. United States. President Donald Trump announced the U.S. will unilaterally set new tariff rates for numerous countries. He cited difficulties in negotiating individual trade deals, highlighting the fragility of the global trading system. Trump also claimed over $200 billion in trade agreements with the United Arab Emirates during his Gulf tour, including a $14.50 billion agreement involving Boeing, GE Aerospace, and Etihad Airways. Senate has accused Trump of corruption of U.S. foreign policy with defense deals. Addressing the situation in Gaza, Trump stated that people there are starving and the U.S. will handle it amidst intense Israeli airstrikes. The U.S. has also presented Iran with a proposal regarding its rapidly advancing nuclear program as negotiations continue. Domestically, the U.S. military is preparing to identify transgender troops and those with gender dysphoria for medical checks, potentially leading to their removal from service. Bad items for hungry people in need have been stuck inside us government warehouses since January's decision to cut global aid programs. The U.S. Justice Department vowed to investigate local officials who obstruct the administration's immigration enforcement. Asylum seekers from around the world face new challenges at the U.S. border. Former FBI Director James Comey deleted an Instagram post of seashell spelling 8,647 after it sparked controversy among Trump supporters and warnings from administration officials. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem deemed it a threat against Trump, prompting an investigation by the U.S. Secret Service. Australia. Focusing on Australia, Liberal Tim Wilson's lead over Zoe Daniel in the Melbourne seat of Goldstein is narrowing, creating uncertainty for candidates in the Sydney seat of Bradfield as well. The Australian Electoral Commission, AEC, is considering sending staff to airports late at night to collect final postal and overseas votes before the midnight deadline. Then Robert Smith, Australia's most decorated living war veteran, lost his appeal against a civil court ruling that found him responsible for unlawfully killing 4 Afghans while serving in Afghanistan. A diver captured the terrifying moment sharks attacked a camera his friend was holding while they traversed a reef in Australia's Coral Sea. China. Turning to China, the Chinese military has cautioned that a U.S. transport craft program threatens space security, citing the potential for rapid launch of weaponizable satellites. Analysts warn of a more intense space race as rival powers, grappling with low trust and transparency, seek both superiority and deterrence. United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates has been active, securing major deals with the U.S., including a $14.50 billion agreement involving Boeing, GE Aerospace, and Etihad Airways, while also balancing relations with its largest trading partner, China. Gaza. In Gaza, President Donald Trump stated that people are starving, and the U.S. will handle the situation as it suffers from intense Israeli airstrikes. He is looking for a solution to bad things happening in Gaza. Author Omar El-Akkad and Mark Lamont Hill discuss Gaza and the perceived failure of Western liberalism. Vatican City. Finally, in Vatican City, a hotel with a privileged view over St. Peter's Basilica from its rooftop terrace began to receive inquiries about room availability when the Chicago-born Cardinal Robert Prevost was declared Pope Leo XIV. The inquiries turned into bookings as tourists, mostly from the U.S., rushed to secure a place to stay in Rome in time for the Pontiff's inaugural Sunday Mass on 18 May. Japan's economy contracted by 0.2% between January and March, its first quarterly drop in a year, translating to an annualized contraction of 0.7% attributed to stagnant consumption and falling exports. This downturn under Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has prompted caution from Bank of Japan member Toyoki Nakamura against premature interest rate hikes. Meanwhile, yields in Japan's $7.80 trillion government debt market are rising rapidly. Japan Display will cut 1,500 jobs after reporting a consolidated net loss of a $78.2 billion, $538.70 million for fiscal 2024. The government is addressing rice supply by auctioning stockpiled rice to retailers and considering extending the buyback rule from 1 to 5 years. The country also plans to add distribution, warehouse management, hotel services, and resource recycling to its foreign worker program. On the defense front, Japan's Air Self-Defense Force initiated safety inspections on its training aircraft after a fatal crash. A defense white paper draft identifies Beijing's military activities as a major strategic challenge. Japan has enacted active cyber defense laws to counter increasing cyber attacks. In legal and social developments, Japan has digitized criminal procedures, allowing lawyers online access to trial records. However, Women in Japan face mandatory prescriptions for emergency contraceptive pills. Cybercrime is on the rise, with online trading account hacks surging in April. Tokyo police and customs officials reported a major ketamine bust. Toyota Motor Corp will release a new electric vehicle in North America and Japan in 2026, jointly developed with Subaru Corp. Zhao Ishikawa became Japan's first severely disabled author to win a top literary prize for her novel, Hunchback. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu pledged to escalate force in Gaza to destroy Hamas as the conflict intensifies. Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling have killed at least 250 people since Thursday, including at least 93 people and 22 children across Gaza, with Palestinian rescuers reporting 120 deaths on Thursday alone. Aid to Gaza has been cut off since March 2nd, leading to a collapse of humanitarian support, with the enclave under total Israeli blockade for more than 2 months. And aid groups warn the territory is on the brink of famine. Israel has blocked all food, fuel, and medicine for over 10 weeks, accusing Hamas of stealing aid meant for civilians. In the West Bank, doctors saved a baby boy after a shooting. And amid protests, Israel's Eurovision entry, Yuval Raphael advanced to Saturday's final. Turning to the United States, former President Donald Trump met with the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, at the Abu Dhabi International Airport. Trump also commented on the conflict in Gaza, stating he wanted the U.S. to make the devastated territory into a freedom zone, and that residents are starving while expecting a lot of good things in the next month. The Trump administration has devised a new plan for delivering aid to Palestinians in Gaza, which the U.S. says will address concerns about aid theft. But experts worry it could set a bad precedent. Finally, New York University is withholding the diploma of student Logan Rozos after he condemned Israel's war on Gaza during his graduation speech, calling out atrocities in Palestine. China is enhancing its military cooperation with Russia and modernizing its own armed forces. China is prepared to expand practical cooperation with the Russian army by deepening strategic mutual trust and stepping up strategic communication. The two countries are also collaborating on building a nuclear power station on the Moon by 2035 to support research at the lunar South Pole as part of the International Lunar Research Station. To modernize the PAA, China has announced new military academies to adapt to the restructuring of military services and talent training. China's defense Chief Dong Jun concluded his first European tour with a commitment to United Nations peacekeeping. The PL-15 missiles were used in combat for the first time in the Kashmir conflict, when Pakistan deployed the air-to-air missiles against India. Economically, China is focused on domestic growth amidst ongoing trade tensions. Economic and trade talks in Geneva between Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and U.S. counterparts, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Greer, yielded substantive progress, formalized in a joint statement. China aims to fortify its domestic economy and decrease vulnerability to US tariffs. China's polysilicon producers are cutting output to historically low levels due to a supply glut and plunging prices in the solar supply chain. State-owned enterprises, SOEs, backed by local authorities, have emerged as a critical engine powering China's fixed asset investment. Huawei's chip unit, HiSilicon, doubled revenue in 2024 due to strong sales of Huawei's Pura 70 and Mate 70 handsets. Domestically, China faces challenges, including a projected rise in dementia cases to 115 million by 2050. While experiencing a moderate rise in COVID-19 cases, the China Center for Disease Control and Prevention believes large-scale outbreaks are unlikely. Fudzai, China's first police corgi, gained popularity as a sniffer dog, but lost his annual bonus due to a lack of self-control. Turning to the United States, trade negotiations with China continue, even as partnerships are under scrutiny. The US and China have de-escalated their tariff war. Recent economic and trade talks in Geneva between Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and US counterparts, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, yielded substantive progress formalized in a joint statement. U.S. congressmen are calling on an American college to end its role in Duke Kunshan University, claiming the partnership creates a direct pipeline between U.S. innovation and China's military-industrial complex. America's plan to impose higher docking fees on vessels made in China will be a blow, but South Korean shipyards face capacity constraints. Meanwhile, in Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, during a state visit to China, declared that Brazil and China align their interests in defending multilateralism. Finally, in the United Kingdom, a trade deal has been struck with Donald Trump, prompting the EU to seek insights for future trade with the US. India's projected growth for 2025 has been adjusted downward by the UN from 6.6% to 6.3%, citing a global slowdown and tariff uncertainties linked to President Trump's policy. President Trump mentioned that India has proposed lowering tariffs on U.S. goods amidst ongoing trade talks. India is grappling with escalating misinformation surrounding its conflict with Pakistan, worsening social divisions, and diminishing faith in reliable news outlets. This situation led India to block Chinese state-affiliated X accounts such as Global Times and Xinhua, accusing them of disseminating pro-Pakistan disinformation and unverified claims. Indian businesses, including traders and travel platforms, are increasingly employing economic actions to express disapproval of foreign policies, showcasing a rise in consumer-led diplomacy targeting nations like Turkey and Azerbaijan. In the realm of sports, India's prominence in global cricket is growing, exemplified by Jay Shah's appointment as chairman of the International Cricket Council, illustrating the increasing connection between sports and governance. Sadly, an Indian climber perished while attempting to summit Mount Everest, along with a climber from the Philippines among hundreds attempting the climb. Turning to the United States, President Trump announced that India has offered to reduce tariffs on U.S. goods during current trade negotiations. These discussions are taking place against a backdrop of broader concerns about tariff uncertainties tied to President Trump's policies, which the UN cited as a contributing factor in lowering India's growth forecast. In China, India has blocked state-backed Chinese X accounts, including Global Times and Xinhua, for allegedly spreading pro-Pakistan disinformation and unverified claims online. Regarding Pakistan, the spread of misinformation related to the conflict with India is intensifying, potentially exacerbating social polarization and eroding trust in credible sources. India blocked Chinese state-backed X accounts, including Global Times and Xinhua, for allegedly spreading pro-Pakistan disinformation. From the Philippines, a climber died while attempting to climb Mount Everest, alongside an Indian climber, amongst hundreds of others also attempting the ascent. Concerning Turkey and Azerbaijan, Indian companies, including traders and travel platforms, are employing economic measures to signal disapproval of foreign policy, reflecting growing consumer-led diplomacy against these nations. Thailand is facing scrutiny over building safety following the collapse of a Bangkok high-rise during an earthquake centered in Myanmar, resulting in 92 deaths. A construction tycoon named Premchai Karnasuta, along with over a dozen others, surrendered to police on charges of criminal negligence related to the collapse. They are among 17 people wanted for their alleged involvement in the building's construction. Separately, Thai police arrested Phra Thamachiranuat in what authorities described as an effort to help purify the religion though specific charges were not immediately disclosed. Adding to the country's challenges, authorities in Bangkok rescued 2 baby orangutans and apprehended an alleged trafficker, shedding light on the persistent problem of wildlife trafficking. The issues surrounding building safety are compounding pressures on Thailand's real estate market, which is already experiencing a slowdown in demand. The United Arab Emirates played host to U.S. President Donald Trump during the final leg of his first major international tour, where he committed to reinforcing the relationship between the two nations and revealed commercial agreements surpassing $200 billion. The welcome ceremony featured a performance of Al-Ayala. A significant agreement allows the UAE to build the largest AI campus outside of the United States. This deal has prompted worries about potential access to this technology by China, particularly given previous limitations imposed to prevent such access. Democratic Republic of Congo is currently embroiled in accusations against Rwanda's army and its allied rebel group. The Congolese Interior Ministry alleges these forces committed atrocities between May 10 and 13. These included the killing of dozens and abduction of thousands of civilians. The rebels accused these civilians of supporting the Congolese army and its allied militias. In related news, over 1,000 disarmed Congolese soldiers and police officers, along with their families, have been safely relocated from Goma. Goma is a city in eastern Congo, currently under rebel control. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has extended an offer of dialogue to India, emphasizing that peace hinges on resolving the Kashmir issue. Islamabad is also advocating for a thorough investigation into alleged nuclear black market activities within India. The nation declared its commitment to upholding the truce and expressed a desire for a composite dialogue with New Delhi. Concurrently, there are reports indicating a resurgence of public confidence in Pakistan's state institutions. Saudi Arabia is facing scrutiny over its human rights record, following its selection to host the 2034 World Cup, prompting a formal complaint to FIFA. This situation follows closely on the heels of former President Trump's earlier visit to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Trump's visit coincided with significant investments in his business within these nations. During an investment conference held in Riyadh, Trump stated that the United States would no longer impose its values on other countries. Public opinion in Saudi Arabia regarding Trump is divided. Some appreciate his straightforwardness and shared principles, while others harbor reservations. Syria's relations with the U.S. have significantly improved, marked by the lifting of sanctions. This shift follows President Trump's Middle East tour. Multi-billion-dollar agreements for U.S. companies were also announced. The move is seen as beneficial for Syria's economic recovery after the Bashar al-Assad era. Syrian business owners are energized by these developments. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Syria's Foreign Minister Azad Hassan al-Shaibani, further solidifying ties. The positive effects of the lifted sanctions are expected to gradually unfold. Mexico is requesting payment from Merbeest's company after the unauthorized use of Maya archaeological site. Images in a chocolate advertisement viewed 60 million times on YouTube. In other news, Mexico's president promised support for investigators working on the case of a Mexican influencer murdered, possibly by a hitman, during a TikTok live stream. Moreover, Mexico struggles with violence against women, ranking fourth highest in femicide rates in Latin America and the Caribbean. The latest femicide victim has been identified as Valeria Marquez. El Salvador actively courted favor in Washington, D.C., during President Bukele successfully obtaining an Oval Office meeting with President Trump. This engagement also yielded a nuclear agreement and U.S. backing for El Salvador's prison infrastructure. These actions are reflective of a larger movement among Latin American leaders who collectively invested substantial sums to sway the Trump administration, targeting advancements in free trade pacts, security aid, and energy sector investments. Senator Tim Kaine, addressing apprehensions about human rights issues and deportation protocols, proposed legislation mandating the Trump administration to furnish Congress with reports detailing adherence to court directives concerning deportees repatriated to El Salvador, alongside a thorough human rights assessment of the nation. Germany's border turnbacks saw a near 50% increase during the new government's initial week. Shifting to the art scene in Germany, the film Sound of Falling, a chronicle of 4 German girls over a century, garnered acclaim at the Cannes Film Festival 2025. The annual Theatertreffen Festival also showcased several choreographer-led productions exploring both transgressive and melancholic subjects. Malaysia is grappling with a record-low birth rate, attributed to a rising inclination towards child-free lifestyles. Malacca acknowledged actress Fan Bingbing's influence in attracting Chinese tourists. A joke made by Vladimir Putin about Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's potential second wife has stirred controversy. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is facing increasing pressure over its handling of foreign interference in elections. Accusations of inaction and a lack of transparency have fueled public debate. The government is also navigating complex negotiations with Indigenous groups regarding land rights and resource development. These negotiations aim to address historical grievances and foster reconciliation. Now in France, President Emmanuel Macron is pushing for further pension reforms despite ongoing public protests. The reforms aim to ensure the long-term sustainability of the pension system. Macron's government is also focused on addressing rising inflation and its impact on households. Measures to support vulnerable populations are being considered. United States President Donald Trump has articulated a strategy focused on restoring global stability through pragmatism and prioritizing American interests. Adding to this, President Trump has repeatedly asserted, specifically 6 times since May 10, while in Qatar, that the U.S. successfully mediated a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, a claim that has drawn scrutiny. Simultaneously, questions surrounding ethical considerations and potential security risks have surfaced, focusing on the legality of President Trump possibly accepting a luxury aircraft as a gift from Qatar. The United States faces a projected $12.50 billion revenue loss from foreign tourism in 2025, according to industry sources. Some international students, like Hassan Kamal Watu from Pakistan, are finding the U.S. under the Trump administration does not align with their expectations of free speech. A visit from Donald Trump to the United Arab Emirates signals U.S. support and reassurance against being perceived as an adversary. Sweden's King Carl XVI Gustaf met Emperor Naruhito at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo on Thursday. Meanwhile, Sweden's Eurovision entrant with a sauna-themed song is a leading contender for the win. Competition is stiff, however, with singers from France, Austria, the Netherlands, and Finland also in the running. In a tragic turn, Rickard Anderson, identified as a school shooter, killed 10 people in Sweden. Anderson, who had a history of mental health issues and financial strain, is believed to have acted with suicide as his motive. United States students are celebrating school support staff as the academic year concludes. The feasibility of the Trump administration's America First policy in the Middle East and South Asia is under evaluation despite its positive reception from the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. In Congress, a House committee has been cautioned to anticipate potential economic warfare or a blockade against Taiwan by Beijing, viewing it as a more probable scenario than a full-scale invasion. Shifting focus to Taiwan, concerns mount over potential economic coercion from Beijing, leading to increased vigilance in the United States Congress. In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing increasing pressure over proposed tax changes. Critics argue these changes will negatively impact small businesses and the middle class. The government maintains the reforms are necessary for a fairer tax system. Poland's political landscape is bracing for a crucial presidential election in 2025. This election is viewed as a key indicator of whether populism's grip on Europe is loosening. The Liberal mayor of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, is expected to challenge the current centrist parliamentary coalition. Migration policies and Poland's future within the European Union are emerging as dominant campaign themes. Surprisingly, both leading candidates have adopted notably anti-immigrant positions. Poland's political landscape is focused on the upcoming presidential elections, presenting a key moment for Donald Tusk's centrist party. The party must demonstrate its commitment to reforming Poland's abortion laws. Concerns linger that the party may have misled women on this sensitive matter. Turning to Portugal, the nation is preparing for another election, but faces considerable headwinds. Unaffordable housing remains a critical issue. Migration is increasingly contentious, and the far right is gaining traction. These challenges contribute to deep societal divisions across the country. Sri Lanka expressed strong objections to the unveiling of a monument in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, on May 10. This monument commemorates Tamils who died in the Sri Lankan Civil War. Its unveiling occurred just before the anniversary of the war's end. South Korea is currently dealing with a blackmail case involving football star Son Heung-min, who reported the alleged extortion attempt to authorities. The woman threatened to spread false rumors of her pregnancy. Simultaneously in South Korea, APEC nations convened to discuss trade concerns, with Austrade Representative Jameson Greer focusing on the potential impact of new U.S. tariffs. Singapore is poised to engage in discussions with the United States regarding the potential implementation of zero or preferential tariffs on pharmaceutical exports, a sector that accounts for over 10% of Singapore's exports to the U.S. Shifting to domestic affairs, prominent opposition figures such as Chee Soon-hwan and Paul Tambia from the SDP, Yi Jin-yong representing the WP, and Desmond Lim of the SDA have collectively reaffirmed their commitment to active political participation, even in the face of various obstacles and difficulties. Turkey has reaffirmed its commitment to ongoing anti-PPK operations, aiming to eliminate the group's presence and perceived threats in the region, according to a recent statement from a ministry spokesperson. Simultaneously, Turkey offered to facilitate peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. However, Russia's Vladimir Putin rejected a proposed summit with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in Turkey, choosing instead to dispatch a lower-level delegation for the discussions. Peru has apprehended a suspect nicknamed Cuchillo, facing accusations of organized crime, aggravated kidnapping, and homicide related to the deaths of 13 minors. Separately, the nation mourns the loss of Luigi Alva, a renowned Peruvian tenor known globally for his interpretations of Donizetti, Rossini, and Mozart, who died at 98. The United States saw a period of strained relations with South Africa during the Trump administration, beginning in late January. A planned meeting between South Africa's President Ramaphosa and then-President Trump was expected to take place in the U.S. Several elements fueled the Trump administration's notably critical stance towards South Africa. Shifting focus to South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa aimed to strengthen economic ties with other African nations. He emphasized intra-African trade as a crucial element for the continent's growth. Ramaphosa advocated for reduced trade barriers and improved infrastructure to facilitate commerce among African countries. His administration also sought to attract foreign investment to boost South Africa's economy. In Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced increasing pressure regarding the rising cost of living. Opposition parties criticized his government's fiscal policies. Many Canadians expressed concerns about inflation and housing affordability. The government defended its approach, citing investments in social programs and infrastructure as measures to support citizens. South Sudan is facing escalating internal conflict. A succession battle is heightening fears. Many worry the US-backed nation could descend into another widespread civil war. Turning to Sudan, government forces have successfully regained control. Battles with rebel troops occurred in Khartoum. Rebuilding efforts are now underway in the Sudanese capital. Okay, I understand the task. I will provide immersive, detailed news summaries, starting each section with the country name naturally embedded in the first sentence. I will maintain a smooth, rhythmic flow, using short, clear sentences and prioritizing accuracy and completeness. I will avoid unnecessary phrases and formatting and focus on governance, international relations, major policies, and societal trends. I will expand short sections to ensure clarity and comprehensiveness, and will not include isolated incidents unless they have significant impact. Let's begin. Argentina. The awe-inspiring Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina is experiencing large ice falls, prompting both excitement and concern among local guides and glaciologists. Albania. In Albania, leaders from 47 European nations are convening to address critical issues of security, defense, and democratic standards amidst the backdrop of Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. Angola. Following his ousting in the 2023 coup in Gabon, the former president has been granted permission to leave and has now arrived in Angola with his family. Burkina Faso. A devastating attack on an army base in Burkina Faso has been claimed by an Al-Qaida affiliate, with reports indicating that 200 soldiers were killed in the assault. Canada. Record-breaking heat waves in Winnipeg coincide with a tragic wildfire in Manitoba, Canada, which has claimed the lives of 2 individuals. While on a brighter note, Nathan McKinnon's 2 goals contributed to Canada's decisive 5-1 victory over Austria at the Ice Hockey World Championship. Chad. Succès Masra, Chad's opposition leader, was detained by security forces on Friday, an action his party has denounced as an abduction. China. Xi Jinping's recent meeting in Moscow with Myanmar's junta leader underscores China's support for the isolated regime and a strategic alignment with Russia, according to expert analysis. While a Chinese defense firm has also secured a significant arms deal with Nigeria, focusing on ammunition production, hardware upgrades, tank servicing, and personnel trade. Guyana, Venezuela. Tensions are escalating in the disputed Essequibo region as Guyanese soldiers have faced 3 attacks in a single day, allegedly perpetrated by armed civilians, as Venezuela continues to claim the Essequibo region and proceeds with plans to hold elections there. Indonesia. Accusations of land grabbing have emerged from indigenous West Papuans against the Indonesian government, which denies these claims and asserts that all land sales transactions are conducted lawfully. Italy. A court in Italy has ruled against the descendants of Italy's last king, Umberto II, denying their claim to reclaim the crown jewels and affirming that the €300 million collection will remain the property of the state. Japan. Japanese authorities have arrested 4 suspects for creating a fraudulent Dominican driver account using a Japanese name and subsequently transferring it to an Uzbek national. Latvia. With heightened vigilance, Latvia's security agency is urging citizens to be alert for potential Russian spies, pointing out indicators like radio gear and probing questions, while acknowledging that these signs could also be associated with ordinary hikers and tourists. Mauritania. Senegal. and Mali are voicing strong condemnation of Mauritania's mass migrant pushback, describing it as an act of xenophobia. Myanmar's junta leader has received a significant boost through backing from China's Xi Jinping in Moscow, underscoring a strategic alignment with Russia. Nepal. An environment conference has commenced in Nepal, focusing on global climate change and its impacts, particularly on the melting snow and ice of the highest Himalayan peaks. Nigeria has entered into a new arms deal with a Chinese defense firm aimed at boosting domestic ammunition production, upgrading military hardware, servicing battle tanks, and providing training for defense personnel. Papua New Guinea. A police commander in Papua New Guinea has expressed concern over the declining public respect for police officers who face increasingly challenging conditions, resource limitations, and lack of appreciation. Moldova is gearing up for a crucial presidential runoff on Sunday, with the two candidates presenting starkly different visions for the country's future, as George Simeon, a Trump-aligned nationalist and frontrunner to be Romania's next president, has called for Moldova to merge with Romania. Serbia. Political tensions remain high in Serbia, where skirmishes have erupted for the second consecutive day during a court protest, continuing the unrest that began more than 6 months ago with anti-corruption demonstration. In Slovenia, police are currently investigating the disappearance of a bronze statue of U.S. First Lady Melania Trump, which was sawed off and stolen from her hometown. Solomon Islands. The Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands is advocating for reforms to the procedures governing motions of no confidence. Tonga. Scientists have made progress in unraveling the origin story of Makalahai, a rock of significant importance in Tongan mythology. United States. The disappearance of a bronze statue of U.S. First Lady Melania Trump from her hometown in Slovenia is under investigation by police. Venezuela. Jonathan Vegas has taken the lead after the first round at the PGA Championship, marking a historic moment as the first Venezuelan golfer to be in the top 10 at the end of any round of a major. Zimbabwe's elephant population, estimated at around 100,000, is double the land's carrying capacity, leading to increasing conflicts with local villagers. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.